We live in a time when disconnection has become our normal. We hear about the epidemic of loneliness, and statistics confirm it. People feel isolated, unseen, and untethered. But I want to challenge us to think differently. We don't just have a loneliness problem. We have a spiritual problem. Welcome to We Have a Spiritual Problem, a podcast where we confront the deeper questions beneath our personal struggles and collective crises. I am your host, Dr. Jeff Armstrong. I am not a theologian or a philosopher, or at least by training. I am a PhD exercise physiologist with an interest in the intersection of the physical and the spiritual. In today's episode, we're going to talk about loneliness. Not as an epidemic of being alone, but as a symptom of a deeper disconnection from spirit, from meaning, from one another. Along the way, we'll consider Teilhard de Chardin's vision of the omega point, the idea of 6 degrees of separation, and even some surprising connections to quantum physics. We'll look at how the people we spend time with shape our becoming, why the SPIES model, spiritual, physical, intellectual, emotional, and social well-being, offers a roadmap for cultivating real relationships, and how we can move from surface-level contact to spirit-centered community. By the end, my hope is that you'll see loneliness not as a personal flaw, but as a signal, an invitation toward something deeper. If you can go back in time and change one thing, just one moment in your life, or in history, what would it be? Or let's make it even more interesting. If I handed you a magic wand that you could use only once, and with it you can change anything in the entire universe, how would you use it? I've been asked both these questions many times, and I find that people almost always answer it in ways that point back to one thing: relationships. How do I answer these questions? Personally, when asked what I might change in the past, I respond nothing. To me, the past has led us all to this very point in history. Any change of the past will change the trajectory of our lives, that we would all be in very different places. No life would be the same. It is true that some lives might be better, hypothetically. But at what cost? The circumstances of our past have shaped who we are, as well as those whose lives we have touched directly or indirectly, have become or are becoming. I refer to the second question as the Puri question, because I was asked that question in episode 35 by Stephen Puri. Before I share my response, take a moment and think about how you would answer these questions. Feel free to pause this episode and perhaps listen to episode 35 before going forward. Stephen asked me the question in part 1 of the episode. Don't worry, I'll be here when you return. How did you answer these questions? Like many, your response is probably tied in some way to relationships past or present. Many, when asked these questions, want to repair a broken bond, heal someone's suffering, or change a decision that drove them apart from someone they loved. Rarely do people talk about money, career, or possessions. At the end of the day, what matters most, and what hurts most when it is missing, is connection. We often describe loneliness in medical terms: an epidemic, a disease, a public health crisis. And while that framing is useful, it also keeps us at the surface. Loneliness is not just about having too few people around us. It's about being unknown, unseen, and unconnected at the level of spirit. Think about the difference between sitting in a crowded stadium and sitting across the table from someone who looks you in the eyes and really listens. One is proximity, the other is connection. The first might stave off boredom for a while, but only the second can touch that deeper ache inside. Think about our collective experience during COVID-19, when we were all isolated and pushed into Zoom meetings and FaceTime. I return, as I often do on this podcast, to Teilhard de Chardin. Teilhard saw this clearly. He believed that the whole universe is evolving, not just biologically, but spiritually, toward greater communion. He called this ultimate union the omega point. Loneliness, then, isn't just painful, it is disorienting. It runs against every grain of creation. Now let's shift for a moment. You've probably heard of 6 degrees of separation, or its playful cousin, the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. The idea is that every human being on Earth can be connected to anyone else through 6 relational links or fewer. At first, it sounds like trivia, But sit with it. It means that no matter who you are only a handful of steps away from the entire world. Loneliness is not about the absence of connection. It's about quality and depth of those connections. Even quantum physics whispers the same truth. At the subatomic level, when two particles are entangled, they remain mysteriously linked, even when separated by vast differences. A change in one is reflected in the other. To me, this is a powerful metaphor. At our deepest level, we are entangled with one another. My well-being is tied to yours, and yours to mine. There's a saying, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And while it sounds simplistic, it captures something profoundly true. We are formed in relationship. If we surround ourselves with people who live distracted, shallow, disconnected lives, we will inevitably be pulled in that direction. But if we choose to invest in relationships that are intentional, present, and spiritually grounded, we will find ourselves growing toward wholeness. This is why loneliness isn't solved by increasing the number of contacts in your phone or followers on your social media account. It's solved, or rather transformed, by orienting your life toward deeper, spirit-centered relationships. So how do we cultivate these deeper connections? The SPIES model gives us that framework. Remember the SPIES model, or well-centered fitness, the interconnectedness of our spiritual, physical, intellectual, emotional, and social well-being. Spiritually, we need relationships that ground us in meaning, purpose, and openness to the divine. Physically, connection requires presence, embodiment, meals shared, walks taken, hands held. Intellectually, growth happens when we share ideas, challenge each other, and remain curious together. Emotionally, vulnerability, empathy, and honesty are the soil of intimacy. Socially, communities are more than networks. They are circles of belonging and care. Notice how each of these domains intersects. Neglect one, and the others weaken. Strengthen them, and relationships flourish. Teilhard's vision reminds us that the trajectory of the universe itself is communion. Everything is moving toward union, not fragmentation. It is spiritual dissonance. We are being pulled toward one another, but something, fear, busyness, shame, self-protection, gets in the way. What if we began to see each step toward connection, a phone call, a shared meal, an act of forgiveness, not as small or insignificant, but as part of a cosmic movement toward the omega point? So, what are some practices for overcoming the spiritual problem of loneliness? For one, we can reshape loneliness. Don't see it as weakness. See it as a signal that your spirit is calling you toward communion. Second, choose your 5. Be intentional about who you let shape your becoming. Thirdly, practice SPIES, well-centeredness. The more balanced you are, the more depth you can bring to others. Fourth, prioritize presence. Connection cannot be outsourced to screens. It requires embodiment. Finally, practice spiritual rituals of connection, prayer circles, gratitude rituals, shared silence. These practices deepen bonds. I recently traveled to Colorado Springs to visit my friends Sandy and Griff and to attend a health and fitness expo. Sandy and Griff and several others I visited were friends I have known for varying lengths of time without meeting in person. All of these felt like seeing people not for the first time, but as people with whom I have had a long-time spiritual connection with. Sam, a friend of Sandy and Griff's, was someone I met for the very first time, yet felt like a person I have known for years. Sam and I shared our first psilocybin experience with Sandy on a Sunday morning hike. We will share our experience in an upcoming episode. I share it here as it was a deeply spiritual and bonding experience. We connected on levels beyond the normal experience. We don't have to partake in plant medicine to bond with others on a spiritual level. We just have to allow ourselves to be present and vulnerable. I also spent time in Colorado with longtime friend Chris and his son Jamie. Chris and I had a conversation about relationship. Both of us struggle with finding close midlife friendships. Chris retired 5 years ago and has struggled with the disappearance of work friends. We all have those relationships that are quite close on the surface, but lack the deeper spiritual connection that we truly crave. We desire a deep relationship that fills the voids in our lives. Many of us are surrounded by people, but are pathologically lonely. Loneliness presents in physiological symptoms, but is really a spiritual problem. If I were given that magic wand, I wouldn't erase suffering or undo the past. In fact, I would break the wand, bury it, destroy it, because I don't want that power. But when it comes to relationship, I would seek, as I do on this podcast, to awaken in every person the recognition that they are not alone, that they are part of something larger, a web of spirit and love stretching from the smallest particle to the furthest star. Loneliness is not the problem, it is the symptom. The true problem and the true invitation is spiritual. And when we embrace that truth, we begin to form the kind of deep relationships that not only heal our own ache, but participate in the healing of the world. I hope if you're feeling lonely or in need of closer relationships, that you will consider what we talked about today and recognize that loneliness isn't about being with people. It's being present with those people that we have access to. Try and reach out to someone who maybe you haven't talked to in a while, or be open to someone who seems that they are lonely too. And understand that your loneliness is not about you. It's about those around us connecting to something deeper. It is a spiritual problem. Be good to yourself and be good to others.